What's that like?
What's going on, people? Hey, it's your old pal Johnny here from the What's That Like podcast, and we are back. And it's been 4 years since we've done an episode. It's been 7 years since we begun this journey. And when we started it 7 years ago, we started it with one person. You all know him. You all love him. His name was producer Bob then. Today, he's Bobby Krug, the phenomenal racer. Bobby, it's good to have you on the show, buddy. How you doing, man?
Dude, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back on the return episode, and congratulations on the return. I'm excited. We've talked a little bit off camera
Yeah.
about your plans for this season, so I think everybody listening at home needs to stay tuned because you got a lot of really exciting guests that are going to be coming up here. So.
I think so. And, when we were talking about doing this, it was like, if I'm going to start, I have to do it with you. You were there, episode number 1, about 100 feet away in my little garage studio. We've got a brand new space here that we're recording in as we kind of start this here in 2024. And you came over one Sunday afternoon and I said, hey, you ever done this? You're like, no, but let's try it. And then you became a big person on this too, as we did the Queen of Hearts. Producer Bob took over the show. We were kind of a big team there for a while. It's good to have you back. How are you doing personally, man? What's going on in your life?
I'm doing good, and I know we'll kind of dive into it as we go along here. But as of recently, starting my own business, I've had a full season under my belt as far as running my own business. As far as Bobby Krug Racing Services, as you can see for the video viewers. But no, it's been good. I've been coaching people and at the kart track still, kind of where everything started for me. I've got a fleet of go-karts that I rent out to people, do mechanical services, stuff like that. So it was a very big jump to leave my previous position that I know we'll get into as well. But no, it's been really good, and I'm happy to be here and happy that everything is going as well as it is.
Well, let's go backwards there. When we last left you, right? You'd won an iDrive championship at the Gateway Kartplex. You then were a scholarship winner of a full season in the Step Up. And you struggled a little bit that first year, but it was like year 2 in that. Tell me what about that kart series, tell me about the kart you had, and tell me about that year 2 you had as you really started to progress up the racing ranks.
Yeah, so the series that I was racing in after the rental kart series in iDrive was the Ignite series. So there's a company out of St. Louis called Margay Racing. They've been there since the 60s. And they're basically, one of the leaders in American-made go-karts. Instead of racing for national championships like they used to, they now have their own spec racing series, which means everybody's on the same chassis, everybody's on the same tire compound, everyone's on the same motor. The motors are sealed, so you can't go in there and mess with anything. It all comes down to driver talent and driver ability. So that's kind of been taking over the go-kart world by storm. And so I was fortunate enough to win that iDrive championship and compete in it. And a lot of it to me was just learning it. iDrive was so convenient for someone that's new to the sport that doesn't want to have the big upfront cost or the knowledge of knowing how to work on something. I mean, I never wrenched on cars or never really did anything mechanically. As people know, my background before that was video and photo and stuff like that. So, that was the big learning curve for me. And as you said, the first year was all about, making mistakes and wrecking stuff and, figuring everything out. And then year 2, we did a lot of the same, but I was finally starting to take notes and try to learn so that way we could have the stellar third year that we did. But no, the Ignite program has grown tremendously, and we just had our banquet yesterday celebrating the past year's champions, and it's incredible to see how big that room's grown. We had, I would say, close to 250 people there that are a part of the Kartplex Ignite family. So it's pretty abnormal, especially in the racing world. You go to a a dirt track or a road course, big car series, and everyone's kind of in their own little world and keeping setups to themselves. It's a huge family there. Everyone's willing to help everybody out, and it's just a great place to be.
Well, you certainly did. You had good success that second year. You were really kind of building into something, right? You won races that second year. You won. I think you won the St. Louis Gateway Track Championship.
So
Correct?
that would have been year three.
Year three.
Year two, we got third place in the championship and a couple podiums. So the couple podiums, I mean, those felt like wins. As far as my feelings, you're totally kind of spot on. Those were big achievements because, I mean, the amount of competition that we had there, and just rattling off a couple names, Evan Stammer, Spike Kolbecker. I mean, there's a lot of guys that was racing with us that second year. That was their last year in full time carts before they moved up to big cars. So
Mm-hmm.
now those guys have been racing, full time in sports cars or formula cars, big league stuff. So to be able to have those podiums that second year was a good step in the right direction. But 2020 was really our big year. That was year three of me competing in the Ignite, and that's when we won the local championship. And then we finished second in the Ignite Challenge regional traveling series that goes to a bunch of different tracks here in the Midwest. We went to Indiana for a couple, up in Missouri and Iowa. So it's yeah, that year was kind of the stamp of approval, if you will, for my racing ability.
You. It was during that time. I think you went to, what was it, the car show or something in St. Louis, and you were trying every day to try to get an opportunity to test the Skip Barber car. And that kind of leads us to our next step. Tell me about that. Tell me really where you went after that.
Yeah, so I remember that was a fun weekend. Skip Barber Racing School, who has been a big partner of mine and my employer for many of my past years, they were at the auto show and they had a sim racing contest where if they gave awards for the top three fastest lap times. And so me and a couple of my kart racing buddies were going there every single day. And I shouldn't have invited them because I ended up finishing second in that. I only got a 1 day school, not a 3 day school, but then I ended up winning a scholarship for Skip Barber through the kart racing series as well in 2019. So I kind of bundled up those two prizes to be able to do a 1 day school at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Which, I mean, even those people that are listening that are not racing fans, you can't not know about
No
Indianapolis. I
way.
mean,
Yeah.
it's historic. The Indy 500 every year, the Yard of Bricks. I mean, I get a little bit of chills just thinking about that.
It's the
And
most famous raceway in the world.
Oh, 100%. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the capital of motorsports, so, and it's funny to think about, telling this story now and where we're gonna go with me, racing full time in that series eventually, but, doing the 1 day school and just feeling the open wheel car and the wind hitting your face and the speed and seeing the front tires right out in front of you, and then the little bump when you're going over the yard of bricks. I mean, that's stuff that childhood dreams are made out of. So, at that point, I was pretty much on top of the world, but no, it ended up, after I won the championship in 2020, I kept getting invited back out to Skip Barber, and it goes back to my video knowledge and experience and the brand that I have with ATA Network. And I just kept making videos for them, and they really loved the videos, and they were using it for their marketing campaigns. And I kept getting invited back out to do more schools. I did that Indianapolis school. I ended up doing two schools at Circuit of the Americas, home for Formula One in the United States until they've added these other venues.
That's down in
Um,
Austin, Texas.
yep,
Austin,
Austin,
Texas.
Texas.
Yeah.
And then I also did another school in their Mustang GT school cars at Road Atlanta, which isn't probably as openly known to not racing fans, but that is an amazing facility too. The elevation, I mean, you're pretty much like on a roller coaster the entire time. It's incredible. But I did all those schools, and then they asked me to do another video project, and I remember getting the phone call, and they said, "Hey, we want you to do our first race of the season at Circuit of the Americas." And at that point, I was just blown away. Like, I remember I was like almost breaking down crying at that opportunity, and had to call all these people to say like, "Hey, I got the big break, got the opportunity." And so I remember going down there for that first race, and it had actually rained on us. And I wasn't as comfortable with the car as I ended up, becoming at the end of it. But I remember at the end of the race weekend, I brought the car home clean with no damage. First race in the rain. And the CEO of Skip Barber, Anthony DeMonte, he said, "I want you to race the rest of the season, and I want you to come work for me." So then that's when I got kind of the full opportunity to be the marketing manager at Skip Barber.
So let's back that part up because we're
Yeah.
talking about racing, but we're also talking about how your hobby, your passion, everything that you were doing prior to just going out kart racing. There was 10 years of Bobby Krug as a YouTube person before you started racing. And these are the worlds that really collided that got you to this next step with Skip Barber. I mean, how important is that background taking your two loves of your life and it turned into a career for you? I mean, does it get better than that?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you in 2010 when it was me and Joe Mahan and Caleb Dexheimer, and we were all making video game related videos on YouTube for fun. I wish I could tell you that I was smart enough back then to know that I had the forward thinking of how big of an asset that was going to be, but that was kind of pure luck. I mean, the hard truth about racing is you can't do it unless you've got a big checkbook or you've got the last name. You know, if you're an Andretti or a Foyt or if you don't have the last name, then you don't have the chance either. I come from neither of those backgrounds. So I had to really just the marketing side of motorsports is what it's all about. I mean, you look at racing no matter what it is, and it's a bunch of logos on race cars and business deals. And I'm not going to bore too much into that, but I wouldn't have been able to do what I did for Skip Barber without the marketing experience. You know, when people are asking me all the time, how do you get into racing? You obviously like something like iDrive, like the rental kart series, is a great first place to go. And if you can get your own go kart, the Ignite program is also great. But if you're going in it for the long term, you need to have like that plan B. And my plan B was to get the marketing education at SIUE and being able to do media for motorsports. People go off and they want to be mechanics, work on the race cars. So, you always have to, you want to be in it for all the right reasons, and you got to be in it because you love it. Because for me, my time at Skip Barber, it was a lot of long days, a lot of hard work. I was the marketing manager, but there was a lot of times that I would go work some of these schools and you'd be working 14, 16-hour days, running the normal racing school operation. So, no, I like I said, I wish I was smart enough to know back then that it was going to be such a big asset, but I'm very thankful that it was, and I'm thankful to the audience that I've been able to build too. Um, I don't have it's not a huge number of followers, right? Like I think it's 2,200 on YouTube and maybe a couple thousand across the others, but my following is a really good group of people, and a lot of them are, close friends of mine, and I keep in touch with a lot of them. So I'm just very fortunate to have had everything kind of aligned for me in the right time.
Well, I think the moral is you were doing things you loved and you put them together. I mean, isn't that what everybody wishes they could do? I mean, everybody needs a job. Let's, whether you're the richest guy on earth, you can't just sit around and do nothing all day. You've got to do something to kind of enhance yourself in the world that you're in. And bringing what you did from a media perspective, a YouTube videos perspective, to what you did with motorsports, there was an undeniable link to get you to where you were going. So Skip Barber sees what you're doing online. They're using your videos that you did via ATA network to really start moving yourself forward there. And then they hired you. And a part of what they did was you were talking about it. You end up driving the whole series, Skip Barber. And I know what they are right above your head there, Bob. That's a lot of trophies you won in the Skip Barber Racing School. So tell me what that was like. What's that like? As you did a season there, historic racetracks all across the country. I mean, it was amazing. I followed you week to week on the internet, just trying to watch your races.
And it's funny because it's totally parallel with kart racing, right? You go out there and my goal every time was I want to get a better finish than I did last time. So, I go out at Coda in the rain race and we finished like ninth or seventh. The next time we get a top five. And then, we started getting on a roll that first year in 2021 where, I was podiuming at every event. I was getting a third place finish at every race. So that year we got a podium at New Jersey Motorsports Park, which that race in itself was, it's just kind of we lucked into it. There was a wreck that happened late in the race, and I was able to gain a position. But the other two races that year were really hard fought, skill based wins. I felt like I kind of fluked into the first one, but then the second one at Mid Ohio Sports Car Course, another really really awesome track, another roller coaster. We seemed to be on rails that weekend, and it's funny how the car, like you would think race car drivers, you had to be in control of your equipment, and you do, but to be fast, you have to be like in that extra 1 or 2% exceeding 100% of the capabilities of the car. So I'm literally sliding. I feel like I'm sliding the car like I was sliding the 45-mile-per-hour go kart around this track, and that's when it started clicking for me, and we started getting the results. So that third place at Mid Ohio was super cool, and then we ended the season at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where I got to do my first school, and we got to stand on the podium there at Indianapolis, and that one was a really good one. It was another rain race. I got to have some redemption in the rain, and we started ninth and made a lot of passes to get up to third place. So that was really cool. And for those that, for those that drive out on the roads when it's raining and it's wet, it's treacherous. But in a race car, I mean, there's a lot of things that are going on. I mean, we're in an open wheel car too, so we don't have windshield wipers or none of that stuff. It's straight to our visor. So you have to, if you don't rain X your visor and properly do that, you could have troubles with visibility. Your visor's fogging up. The rain, and the thing is with that race specifically is it was a wet track that was turning dry. So if it was like Formula One or IndyCar, we would have came in and switched tires to slicks. But in this series, you're stuck on the same set of tires for the whole race. So at that point, it became a game of trying to not overheat and burn up your rain tires. And so at that point, you start avoiding the water, and then once it gets dry enough, then you're aiming for puddles to try to cool it down. So it's a lot of racing is a sport. I'm 100% on that. I was not in great physical shape. I mean, the karting kind of built up a racing physique, but once I got to the formula car, it was next level stuff. But it's a lot of a mental game too, and being able to think about all those different things, because it's like you know basketball or whatever. It's you've got to get the ball into the hoop, but now you're actually with racing, you have this whole machine, and you got to be thinking about your tires and your suspension and your fuel and everything else that's going on. And you got to be checking temperatures. Like you're almost like wheeling a spaceship, right? If something goes wrong, you got to be able to know and identify what to do. So it's a sport, but then you're also trying to be a mechanic and an engineer and trying to figure everything out. So, um, yeah, no, that first year was, I didn't think it could get any better. And then, it's just kind of the theme of what we're seeing. It just keeps getting better and better. And so I was very fortunate enough that we had a really good season that first year. We didn't end up doing all of the races that season, so I don't really the end of the year points. I think we were like fifth or seventh, but three podiums. My first full season in a Formula Car series. I think I got some people that were noticing my talent. So
And then what? So then what happens, Bob? You've done a full season. You've jumped up. You go back to you were going back to the cart during the week just to stay fresh, stay sharp. I can't speak today, but really it was a big bonus for you to just stay on the track and stay with the people and stay involved in something that you love so much. Did you race anymore after that season?
So yeah, we ended up getting another. Well, so fortunately, they were happy with my work that I was doing 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. With running the social medias and the website and everything, and then they were really happy with my performance. And they're very big on kind of homegrown talent. They want to say, hey, we found him when he was in a go kart, and he's been in our system this entire time, and look at what he's doing. So fortunately, I was able to get another season out of it. So we ran another full season in 2022. And that's when I started. I actually got 3 wins that season, I think 9 podiums. We finished third in the championship against two super, super talented guys. Elvis Rankin and Jeshua Alianel. I mean, Jeshua had a little bit, and both of them had a lot of experience. Elvis actually, he was full grown on iRacing. He won the Skip Barber Formula iRacing series, and he actually got a scholarship to go from the simulator to the real world car. So he skipped the go kart step, right? That's a tough challenge, but no, he was young. I think at the time he was 14 or 15 years old. Super talented kid. But to finish third with those guys was pretty impressive. And the other thing too, on that note, I'm working and racing at the same time. So those weekends that I'm at the track racing, like I got out of the car, and then you got to go make a post, this is your podium photo or whatever. And if I'm in
Right.
the podium, then I got to get somebody else to shoot the photo. And then
Correct. Yeah.
you got to go to social media and post it. And you got to go to the website and post it. And you got to email all of our different partners at the time and send them out the press release. So, I don't want to say I was at a disadvantage, but, guys like Jeshua and Elvis, they're able to really, the time that they were spending with the coaches, looking at data, looking at video, I'm sitting behind my computer and running social media stuff. So it's one of those things like where I'm very proud of the performance that I had, but you almost wonder if I was in the kind of the same shoes and had a little bit more, time to look at data and coaching and wasn't working all the time. I wonder how much better it could have been.
Tell me about Road America, Wisconsin. Right. This would, if I'm, tell me I'm right here. That was your first win, correct?
So I gotta check the trophies. Um, no, that was my second and third
Oh,
wins.
second and third. Okay.
My first one came at VIR, Virginia International Raceway, which that weekend in itself was crazy. I flew there and all my race gear was lost. So you had to go scramble. Unfortunately, since it's Skip Barber Racing School, they've got loaner helmets and everything else. But I mean, wearing somebody else's helmet is like wearing somebody else's underwear. It's not you put on your identity, right? It's kind of like your mask if you're a superhero, right? So there's something about that. But no, that was our first win. But Road America, I think, was the highlight of the season. Um, First and foremost, it was really awesome to have my dad there, because we put together a massive qualifying effort. That's the best I've ever done in qualifying. Um, the draft is super important. And for those that aren't necessarily into racing, when you're on the highway and you're behind a semi truck, you can feel the air, right? You watch Daytona 500, you can see that the draft is super important. Well, I put together two massive drafts in one lap, and I ran a lap time that was like half a second to a second faster than the field. And the best part is I ran that lap like halfway through the session, and I came in early, and my dad was in the pits too. And I was sticking up the number one because I knew that that lap was so good that nobody else was going to have a better lap. So I just parked it
Let me
in, pulled
stop
it
you
in.
though for a
Yeah,
second, because
go for it.
Road America is unlike most any other track, at least in the United States, right? And so I'm gonna give you a quiz here. How long is the track at the Gateway Carplex?
Gateway Carplex is a half mile
All right,
track.
and how long is the track at Road America?
It's like four something, 4.2, 4.1,
So, and your lap times at the Carplex are,
36 seconds on a good day.
and in this Skip Barber car at Road America,
We were like probably two something.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 220, 230, something like. So I just want people that are listening to understand the difference here. The length of the track matters. It's remembering every inch of a track, that you've got to put every single corner together in the best way in order to do what you did. You mentioned iRacing. So I'm gonna jump backwards, and I want you, before we go forwards,
Yeah.
iRacing simulator. It's on the computer. I've done it. My son's done it. You've done it for years, right? And it's huge today. It really blew up during COVID when people were stuck in their homes. How
100%.
much work, let's just say, did you do on the iRacing simulator before you got to Road America that really propelled you forward?
So I wish I had done more, honestly, because like I said, the work schedule I had at the time was so intensive that it was very difficult to find the time. But ideally, I did not want to go to a track without a minimum of 20 hours on track in the sim prior to getting there. Because like as you said, like if you go test at the Carplex, for us private carters that have our own carts, it's a $60 fee. You can go race all day for 8 hours, 9 hours. You can't do that with Road America unless you've got a really big wallet. You got to rent out the track, then you got to rent out the car. So the sim is the best bang for your buck. It's the best tool. And I mean, there's been a ton of people. William Byron, currently, NASCAR Cup Series driver, fully from the sim to real life. Dale Jr. has been a big proponent of it, and he's actually got a leadership role within iRacing now. So it's a huge tool, and I spent a lot of time on it. And I will say, you talk to a lot of guys that run on the sim, and they're like, oh, this feels real. But for a guy like me, I've actually done it for real, and so I can kind of go back to the sim and compare it. And some of the physics are, they still need a little bit of work, but the tracks on iRacing are laser scanned. So they've got every single bump, every single crack in the track surface. Like we just talked about Mid Ohio. Like there's a very famous corner at the very end of the track called the carousel. So it's like a long sweeping left hander, a quick right, and then you go to the start finish line. There's this big bump on the left. And in the sim, if you were like a half car length onto the left of that bump, it would upset the suspension of the car and you would get a big, an oversteer moment, get the car loose and have to catch it. And in real life, the bump's there. So I was already aware of that versus, first lap at Mid Ohio in a $100,000 formula car. I know that there's a bump there that's going to get the car upset. So it's a little bit of a confidence booster too to just know, okay, this is what the track is.
Hmm.
So, in summary, I would say it's definitely more for learning the tracks than maybe car handling and setup, but it's a super super big tool.
The difference is, if you know what I'm talking about, I want you to explain it for my listeners here.
Yeah.
The difference is it's not what you feel here, it's in your butt, right? That's where you
Right.
feel the cart. That's where you're driving from, is what the feel in the seat really means. And iRacing, by and large, doesn't give you that. So it's an advantage to be there to actually race. That's the difference maker.
Yeah, I mean the technology within sim racing has come a long way, I will say though. You can get certain wheels like the wheel that I have. I mean, you can feel the vibrations of the motor in it. It's a direct drive wheel, so if you can turn this, too high of a setting, and when you hit a wall, like if you don't get your hands off the wheel, it could break your wrist like it would in real life. So like the technology is really close there. And of course, it comes back to, if you look at like top tier like IndyCar teams or NASCAR teams, they've got full blown sims that do have emotion. And like you said, like the feel of, what's going on in the seat, right? The car's like how it's rotating, the slide that it's doing. There's sims that are pretty close at trying to manipulate that, but you can only get, even the good ones are 85% of the way there.
Right.
There's nothing that beats, actually getting on track and feeling out the real car.
Okay, so take me from the kid that was playing Nintendo NASCAR games, and then he gets in a go kart rental on Father's Day one year. That.
Thanks to you, by the way. Thanks to you.
Well, yeah, because I did it a week before, and you said, "Is this cool?" And I said, "Yeah." So where I'm going with this question is, Bob, what was the feeling like? You're crossing at VIR, or you're crossing at Road America, the finish line, and you're thinking, I was a video game kid driving a rental go kart, and now, as you said, you're in $100,000 formula car. And and again, I'm not insulting you. You're a nobody in the racing world, and everything you did was nothing anybody gave you. It was 100% you earned. I see you tearing up almost
Yeah,
on
a
screen,
little
right?
bit.
But
It's too early in the morning to cry. Too early in the morning to cry.
What's that feeling like of accomplishment to know you got there all on your own?
It's it's gratifying, and one of the biggest things that I believe in is, hard work, right? Like somebody's always going to have more money than you. Somebody's always going to have more talent than you. Somebody's going to have more, whatever, but you can always work harder than the next guy, right? So that comes to, nightless hours of building sponsorship proposals and in 2018 to figure out how I'm going to afford to go Ignite racing and getting wonderful people like yourself and James Labonte on board to, throw me a couple bucks to, pay for a set of tires or whatever. And then stuff like, when I was working full time at Skip, putting in the extra hours and showing that, and no matter what circumstance, that you're going to stop at nothing to achieve a goal. Ironically enough, like ATA Network, achieve the achievable. There's a little underlying theme there of, anything's achievable with that hard work. Um, but I mean, it's the thing, and I always said this on the podium too in my speeches of getting those trophies, and I just remember some of the videos of that kind of as you mentioned that it takes an army of people to get one guy at the top of the mountain. Um, I mean, like I mentioned, you and James, like that kind of support early on was huge. The support system at the Gateway Carplex, the people that built that program, that like I said, that program is so unique and has allowed a lot of guys like myself that had nothing to be able to go and become a somebody. And then obviously the Skip Barber program in itself too. Like I was a homegrown guy from there that I had no car experience until I had actually gotten there. So, I can sit here and pat myself on the back, but it's a lot of everybody else that kind of it's a testament of the work from myself, but everybody else around me to kind of put a like stamp of approval on, the Ignite program really builds out really good drivers. The Gateway Kartplex is a top tier facility. Skip Barber Racing School is the best racing school you could go to. And I just so happen to be a product of three really great systems. And the other thing too, like I'd mentioned earlier, is my dad was there at Road America. And, when I was a kid, we would put the TV, flip the TV on to the NASCAR race every weekend. And it's emotional to think that I got to take him to a racetrack and he got to see me race, and not only race, but get a pole position and 2 wins in the same weekend. So that was more kind of on him that, and we've never really talked about. I never told him like, "Hey dad, did you ever have a dream of being a race car driver?" Because I think most adult males probably had that dream at some point. Everybody wants to be a race car driver, everybody wants to be an astronaut. So it was a dream realized for me, but in a way it was a dream realized for him. So I think that meant a lot to me too.
It was awesome. I can tell you, I gave you a couple bucks, right? It wasn't anything that really prepared you forward. You put my name, you put the What's That Like podcast on your cart. I still have some of the body work in my other studio. It's really fun to think about that it's over there. But at the same time, Bob, we all went on this journey with you. We were proud of you, right? It was fun to see you do something and go forward. And most importantly, we didn't invest as a makes it sound like we gave you a lot of money. We didn't. But at the same time, it was more like because you were a good guy than it is because we thought, oh, we're taking a small piece of this kid's future racing career. That was never going to happen, from our perspective. But it was so much fun watching you do all this and having some pride. And I remember I would like, hey, you got John Michael Marty, get this guy on your radio show. And they did stuff in the newspapers about you. That was really some of the cool things that we saw over the last how many years. And Mont Olive's homegrown. You've really gone off and done something that's pretty amazing over the course of the years since we've talked. Let me transition you a little bit because eventually Skip Barber kind of comes to an end and you made another big transition to what it is you're doing right now. Tell us that story.
Yeah, and so I'll be completely honest and transparent too. The racing opportunity kind of faded away. And they kind of had me racing in the Formula Race series to kind of help further promote and market that series. And it just so happened that I did such a good job of that as the team. We all did a really good job that Skip Barber actually got back on the road to Indy ladder. So what that means for people is back in the day, like maybe in the 90s, early 2000s, you could go to the Skip Barber Racing Series. You could win a scholarship to move up the ladder. And then at the top of the ladder is IndyCar. So we actually were able to build a partnership with IndyCar again and bring Skip Barber back to that glory day of if you want to be a race car driver, you go to Skip Barber. Um, so all of the seats in the Formula season sold out. And then there was a possibility, maybe there was some rumblings about maybe I would go into a touring car. Maybe I would get some kind of other opportunity to go Formula racing in a different series in the United States. But none of that really transpired. And at that point, I was looking at, am I having fun? Eh, not really. Am I putting in a lot of work? Yes. Is it worth the work? Not really. So I'm thinking at the time 24 years old, 25 years old. I've got time to learn and make mistakes and take a step back. That was a super difficult thing for me to do because people would ask me, "Hey, what's your 5-year plan?" And I'm at Skip Barber Racing School, literally the best racing school in the world, and I'm their marketing manager with a lifelong possibility of being a part of that company forever. It's tough to leave something like that because I didn't see myself leaving within 5 years. So then I decided to take the step back, and I had already, went in my time at Skip Barber, I was on the side just as friends of other racers, helping them out, coach them. Notably, my good friend of mine and business partner, Matt Zagaitis of Global Force Kart Sport, veteran owned kart racing team. He's got big plans for that to try to build a veteran based community, and a support system within the world of racing. And so I'm a big believer and proponent of what his mission is. And he was, me and him were best friends. All the videos that you guys would have seen from Skip Barber, Matt was always the video guy for me. So, I was always helping him out. I helped him win an iDrive championship himself. And then we actually just celebrated last night at the banquet his Ignite championship after only 2 years. It took me 3 years, but I like to say maybe with a little bit of my help that we helped expedite his process. So, after helping him out, and then there's videos on my channel, but like you said, I still tried to get in the cart as much as possible when I was racing the formula cars, but I didn't have my own go-kart. I've been a scholarship winner for the last 3 years and I had a scholarship ride. I don't own my own stuff. So I would actually make a deal with some of my friends like, "Hey, if you let me see your cart, I'll fix it up, see what's wrong with it, I'll drive it and see if we can make it fast." And there was 3 guys that, maybe they would finish, maybe they'd have a top 10 finish here and there, but most of the time, maybe back in the pack, struggling a lot. I would take their carts and I would fix them in exchange for me getting to race them for a race. And then I would go out and win. I did that like 3 times. So it's a little bit of, yeah, I did find problems with their cart, but then also you're not driving it to the full potential. So then it turned into driver coaching at the same time. So I had all of these elements of my business already floating around before I left Skip Barber. But it just so happened that I left Skip and I had conversations with my girlfriend Haley and my parents and just like what should I do, kind of like life coach. And I came to the realization, like I said, I'm 25 years old. If I'm going to try starting a business and make a mistake and have a flop, now's the time to do it. I don't have like a family I'm trying to support, right? I don't need that necessarily that fixed income anymore. So and like I mentioned, we are a year into the business and we worked with approximately 50 different kart racers in some capacity. That could have been a one-off person that wanted to do an arrive and drive just to test out a cart. And then I would coach some people. I would coach them on a weekly basis at the track. So and it goes back to I'm not in it for the money. I want to enjoy what I'm doing every single day. And it's this is the most fulfilling job I've had. Um, because like I had mentioned, I got to go to the banquet last night and I got a couple trophies. I did do a little bit of kart racing last year in Super Comp, which is the secondary season. But all of my marbles on the main Ignite program were on helping other people out. And so to be able to see, maybe 4 to 5 trophies across my clients last night, that's a little bit more rewarding, I think. Like when I'm the driver and I go out and win a championship, I'm the variable. And this is the confidence spewing out. I mean, I know I can get the championship, but when you're relying on coaching somebody and mechanically supporting somebody and you see them win a championship, that to me has been a lot more difficult. So it's been more rewarding for me.
It's like your kids. You don't have kids.
100%.
You don't have kids of your own, Bob, but this is what it feels like when you watch your kids do things. And I'm sure that's exactly what your dad felt because I'm a parent myself. It's exactly what your dad felt when he watched you win in those carts. So you mentioned something here, and maybe this is just really where we close it. You're doing exactly what you want to do. You're loving it, and you're getting paid to do it. Does it get better than that?
It does, but it's good. It's good where I'm at, but you always got to be thinking about the next thing, right? And so, like in a perfect world, and I saw what Skip Barber Racing School was like. I've seen what the Ignite program's doing. I've been in all these different facets of racing, so I'm always trying to think about what's the next thing for my business that can help support other people get opportunities to be in race cars. So we may be talking again in another couple of years, and I may have race cars for rent, right? So that's how it gets better, is just continuing to pursue this. And like I said, like I will eventually work my way back into a race car at some point. I've got no doubts about that. And then I can cart whenever I want to. I've got my own carts now, which is great. I've got 4 in the garage that are available for rent. I can just step in one whenever I want. That's really cool. But like I said, right now the biggest enjoyment I have is seeing other people be successful and achieve their goals and be able to kind of show people that what I did is not a one-off thing, right? This is very duplicatable. And it's just like I said, and you hit the nail on the head. It's like being a parent. It really is. Like, and the biggest thing that I hate about the business right now is when I've had like 3 or 4 carts for rent and they're in the same race and they all go into turn number one, first lap. And I'm like, man, I hope they all make it out alive. I like, hopefully we don't break anything. Hopefully we have some good finishes. We had a couple podiums this year, a couple wins, and then we also had a couple DNFs. That's just the sport of racing, and that's life, right? You're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have good days. You gotta take a look at it the big picture, right? You can't let one DNF spoil a bad, season. You got to take a look at it the big picture. So I've been very fortunate to have the opportunity to start the business first off, but very fortunate to have a lot of good clients to work with. And I call them clients, but they're friends, they're family. And we all had a great time at the banquet last night. It was good seeing everybody, and we're all pumped for the season to start here in late March, early April.
Yeah. What's next, Bob? So this is the start of 2024. You just celebrated 2023 season. As you said, lots of fun, lots of success, things you're looking forward to. I assume your business is growing,
Yes,
right?
100%.
So if I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, I kind of like racing. The only reason I clicked on it because it said Racing's Bobby Krug, and I'm interested. What do you do for your people? Why do they want to choose Bobby Krug Racing Services?
Well, I'm it's it's the experience that I've had and the accolades that I have. There's nobody else at the track, nobody else within the Ignite program specifically, and probably nobody in four cycle in the United States period that has the four cycle championships and the Formula Car experience on top of it. Um, and the way that we utilize video and data to make people faster, nobody else is doing that. There's these little computers that we have on the steering wheel that tell us lap times, but you can actually plug it into a computer, and I can look at your, G forces through the corner and your acceleration and engine RPMs, and we go through that, and I can see pinpoint where people are making mistakes. Nobody is going to that level at the track that I'm going. Um, so that's more so for people that are probably already in it, that are looking for that competitive advantage, right? That already have a baseline understanding. But I realize that most people, especially listening to this right now, are completely new to it altogether. And so what we also do is we offer carts for rent. So if this is something that you've seen, whether you follow me or you follow John and you've seen the stuff that he shared of me, or you've just seen it on your own, the kart racing thing is a lot of fun and it's affordable to be able to go through me to rent a cart for a day just to try it out, see if you like it. Because, like I said, the upfront cost of getting the cart and the way of transporting it around and the tools and everything else, don't worry about that. Just rent one, get into it, feel it out. So that's kind of the big things that we do. Mechanical services for people if they don't want to work on their own stuff, driver coaching, carts for rent, um, and and the driver coaching stuff. It spans across carts and cars. I've already got a couple dates this year where I'm flying across the country helping people out, with some test days and actual cars. So yeah, it's busy and it's growing a lot. Last year we only kind of stayed in the local series here at Gateway to kind of get our feet wet, but we've got a couple big national races that are circled on the calendar. So I think I was looking, we've got probably close to 30 to 40 dates kind of already marked out this year. So it's going to be a lot of work, busy, but it's a blast. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else.
Who should I be watching out for? Who's in the Bobby Krug stable that I need to be watching for?
So the top guy that I would say that I'm working with right now, and there's three that come to mind, and there's a lot more obviously that I would love to shout out. I'd love to shout out everybody that's working with me, but there's three guys right now that I'm working with that are really good. The first one is Matt Zagaitis. He's the guy that won the championship last year at the local track. The Global Force Kart Sport veteran owned kart racing team. He's going to be racing the regional series this upcoming season. So we're hoping that we're going to be able to do some more away races and kind of further develop our setup and do more research. But he's come a long way in a short period of time, and he's on fire and he's hungry to go out there and win some races. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he does. And then we've got Scott McClendon Jr. He's going to race a full campaign this year with me in the Ignite series at Gateway. He's a top tier dude. He's had a lot of hardships in his life. He actually won a scholarship to race Ignite in the past through the Gateway Carplex, and he fell on hard times. He got back on his feet on his own. He's a super down to earth, humble guy. And he's super talented. He got me my first podium as a team owner last year. And if we ran a full season, he could win a championship. So we're totally determined to do that. And then the last one I'll give a shout out to is James Mann, and he actually won the iDrive championship this last season. So he's going to spend his first season of Ignite under the Bobby Krug racing umbrella. So it's going to be cool to be able to work with another new kid. And he's super talented too. Me and him ran the iRacing 24 hours of Daytona together. We actually sat in the sim for 24 hours and did it like you would in the real world. And he actually ran faster lap times than me. So he's got a wealth of talent. It's just trying to get him adjusted to fit good in the Ignite program, and I've got no doubts about him. He'll be fine in the top step pretty soon too.
Good for all those guys. Good for them working with you. You mentioned this Rolex 24 hours sim race, right? Which mimics the real Rolex 24 at Daytona. How did you guys do? How did you finish?
Oh man. Well, so we had I'll say this very politely. We had drivers of varying talent. So and it really came down that we just kind of pulled it together last minute with some drivers from the Gateway Carplex. We wanted to do a Gateway Carplex themed team. So we had it was myself, James Mann, Tommy Sherrick, Jake Weinberner,
Sprinkles.
which got Sprinkles, yep.
Yes.
And then we also had Todd Martin. So it was we were as high as like third place, fourth place, and then a guy would get in the car and maybe wreck the car, and then we would go back to like 22nd, 10 laps down or whatever. So we kept going back and forth a lot. I think we ended up finishing like 12th, but we're gonna try running some more of that stuff just kind of as we can. Like as you said before, I'm trying to do racing as much as I possibly can. And with the business right now, it's difficult for me to, if I'm wrenching on three guys' carts, I can't go out and race myself. It's very difficult to do that and disrespectful to them, right? Don't want to take away time for them. So if I can get in the sim and do something like that, um, it's it's not quite the same, but it scratches the itch.
Yeah. So Jake Weinberner, yeah, he's my friend.
Sprinkles.
He's my friend's Pat's kid. So yeah, Sprinkles. I love it. I don't know where that comes from. And I just don't want you to tell
Oh
everyone. I
man,
don't want
it's a good one.
I don't
It's
want,
a good
I
one.
think they just got to come find
Oh,
Sprinkles on social media and figure it out for themselves. So, Bobby, once again, thank you so much for being my first guest on the relaunch of What's That Like. What would you leave everyone with here?
go back and re-listen to what I said about hard work.
Hmm.
If you want something in life, just go work hard for it and don't lose sight of it. Especially something like racing. It's not like any other sport where you've got two teams, so you got a 50% chance of winning. In racing, you lose a lot more than you win. It's the same with life, right? If you're going through a tough spot and you have a lot of losses, just know that you got a win coming around. So
Good advice, Bob. So good advice, man. I can't thank you enough for being on the show. I can't thank you enough for being a part of this show for so long, and I couldn't think of anyone better to really be my first guest to have back as we restart this thing. And for all of you listening, I've got a list of about 18 people. I don't know if we'll get to them all, but we're going to get to a bunch of them here in this next season of What's That Like. Bobby, I'm going to let you say it. What do I say as we leave, man?
peace out.
Peace out. Thank you all so much. Take care.